They were the upstarts of the NBA, decided underdogs come playoff time. But for one magical month more than 30 years ago, they were giant killers. First came Detroit, in a duel of Hall of Famers climaxed by an unforgettable Game 5.
Orr keeps it alive. Lewis went up with the left hand. King with a sensational rebound. And that's it. The New York Knicks have defeated the Detroit Pistons in overtime to take the series in 5.
Then, a 7-game marathon against their oldest rivals. 7 games of emotion, tension, and drama.
In the middle of the floor, we got a brawl.
The year was 1984, and for the first time in what seemed like forever, springtime belonged to the Knicks.
Welcome to the 70th anniversary presented by Chase. I'm Jonah Ballo, and today we have a special group with us, members of the 1983-84 team that made a run into the playoffs to the semifinals, 7 games against the Boston Celtics. And first, I want to introduce Hubie Brown, the head coach of that team. 1982, you succeeded Red Holtzman. You coached the Knicks from 1982 to 1986 and a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame. Thanks so much for being with us.
Oh, real pleasure. Thank you.
And, of course, Bernard King right there, the 1985 scoring champ as part of the New York Knicks. He was a 4-time NBA All-Star, also a member of the Basketball Hall of Fame. Bernard, good to see you again.
Yeah, I'm delighted to be back. This is home.
Great. Thanks so much. And the man in the middle here, too, the center who played for the Knicks, part of that 1979-1988 team. He's also a 3-time NBA champion, an NBA All-Star 1980. Thanks so much for joining us.
Great to be here.
Good to see you, Bill. And, of course, Rory Sparrow, a member of the Knicks from 1983 to 1987. He had a 12-year NBA career, played out of Villanova. Thanks so much, Rory. Good to see you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And, of course, Darrell Walker there, former number 12 overall pick out of Arkansas. He played from 1983 to 1986. He enjoyed a 10-year NBA career, an NBA champion, and who could forget being an assistant coach here during the 2012-14 seasons. Thanks so much, Darrell.
Glad to be back.
All right, let's kick this off, and let's journey back in the time capsule, Hubie. 1983 training camp. What type of team did you think you had with these guys?
Well, we're coming off of the first year, 83, 8 new players, a new coaching staff. We get Bernard King, Louis Orr, and Ernie Grenfeld on Thursday, and we're opening up on Friday. If you remember, we played 1 game at home, and then we went out on the West Coast and we played like 6 or 7 games. But by getting into the second round of the playoffs, we beat New Jersey, and then we played the Sixers, and that was cover of Sports Illustrated, greatest team in the history, arguably the greatest team ever. Mm-hmm. And we had a series with them that gave us a lot of hope that was going to make us an outstanding basketball team. They beat us by 10-7 in Philly, and then at home on that incredible shot from beyond half court, at the buzzer, we lose by 2, and then on Monday we lose by 3. But that was the setup for what was to come. We were fortunate halfway through the year. We got Rory Sparrow in a trade from Atlanta, and that was very big for us because of the point guard situation, the leadership role, and also one of the best defenders in the league. So we thought that we had enough ammunition. And when you talk about this series with Boston, you have to remember, in 83, we were 3-3 with them. Mm-hmm. In 84, we were 3-3. And then we get in the playoffs, and it's 3-3 going into Game 7. So, and I'm glad that they showed some of the fights because because that was naturally a part of that series, sure. All right, for 2 years.
You know, Bernard, looking at that 1983-84 team, seemed a little bit streaky, right? And by our count, 2 4-game winning streaks, 2 5-game winning streaks, a 6-game winning streak throughout that season. What type of team did you think you guys had, Bernard, and especially how streaky they were throughout that season?
Well, I thought we had a very experienced team going into 83-4 season. We had a very upbeat training camp. We had experienced players. We had very talented players. And most importantly, we had tremendous team chemistry. And so I was pretty excited about what the prospects are for us going into the 83-84 season. And despite some inconsistencies the first half of the season, I thought overall we had an outstanding year, particularly going into the second half.
Bill, the chemistry on this team, how did you feel about not only what you guys were doing during the regular season, but ramping up to that postseason?
Well, I think we were consistent throughout the course of the season, not only in how we played, but how we practiced. We were exactly the same every day, and I think that was really important in our building to the end of the year. And as the season went on, we played better and better during the course of that season. So we built to the playoffs, and I thought that, of course, we played well.
Now, Rory, the team finishes with the 5th seed, pitted up against the Isaiah Thomas Detroit Pistons. Now, this is before Bad Boys, right? So they didn't really have sort of that swag, I guess you could say, about them. But they did have a young Isaiah Thomas. They had a young Bill Laimbeer, of course, Vinnie Johnson, the microwave there. What did you think about when the seedings came out and you were facing a Detroit Pistons team?
Hold on a second, there, Jonas. You're jumping too far ahead now.
Okay.
Okay? There's some extraordinary things that occurred during that 83-84 season, okay? Now, coming out of the All-Star game, we were playing in San Antonio, and I had a good All-Star game, scored 18 points in that game. Went into the San Antonio game. We were lacking a few players. Louis Orr was out with the flu, and Ray Williams wasn't playing. And we won that game, and I scored 50 points. And we go into Dallas the next night, if you guys remember. And we played Dallas, and the great Mark Aguirre, small forward. And I scored 50 points in that game. Last play of the game, Rory Sparrow's dribbling the ball, and teammates are yelling from the bench, "Rory, get beat the ball! Get beat the ball!" I didn't know I was close to 50, and Rory's dribbling away. Finally,
is that true? He didn't know he was close to 50?
Finally, he dribbles the ball over. He passes me the ball. I drive against Jay Vincent, never forget it. And I spun, and I said, because he cut me off, and I said, I'm not going to miss this shot. And I went up and scored 50. Back-to-back 50-point games. Hadn't been done in 30 years. You got to mention that, Jonas.
I had it in my notes. You didn't give me a chance. I had it in my notes.
To the playoffs.
Well, what did that say about your guys' confidence, too? And Bernard, you had such a prolific year that year, and the balance that you probably had to play in terms of going off for 100 points in 2 games and then figuring out when and how to pick your spots.
Yeah, it was a tremendous team win. You know, we had great contributions from Billy and Rory and Darryl and all the other guys. It was a great win. You don't beat 2 of the best teams out on the West Coast without having a great team playing, and that's what we had in those 2 ball games. I just had 2 extraordinary nights.
Rory, that 5th seed, though, now that you get to the seeding part of the postseason.
Hey, well, Isaiah is a tough matchup, and one of the things that you want to do every time you play against a guy like that is compete. And I always felt that if I can go out and slow him down and challenge him, then me being probably the least talented of the 5 that were on the floor then the rest of our team was going to be pretty good. So I went out, and every time I competed against him, I really tried to challenge him, make him better, and make sure that I was respected on the court. It's just ironic that game, though, he later on in the series, he goes and scores like 16 points in like a minute and 40 seconds. Thank God for my little I got him warm for my little
did.
No, Rory and Darryl played great defense against us there during that series. And if those guys did not defend the way they did, there's no way we'd have won that series.
Darryl, it's important to mention, too, as part of that team, that 2 members are no longer with us, and Ray Williams and Marvin Webster. And you had a special relationship. Can you talk about your relationship and how that played out throughout the season with Ray Williams?
Ray was my introduction to the NBA and to training camp. He talked about a guy like 6'2", 205, that's probably pound for pound was one of the strongest guys in the league at that time. People didn't know that, and that was a real wake-up call for me coming from the University of Arkansas. But he was a great mentor, a very good basketball player. What made Ray dangerous was he didn't mind taking a bad shot or a good shot. He was just going to take the shot. So I'm not so sure he was enthralled with that. But that's the type of player that Ray was. He was a dangerous player.
We talk about before getting into the Detroit series, Hubie, but your team defensively was one of the best rated defensive teams in the league. How did you feel about the construction of this team, and heading into that postseason, what did you think about how you were going to have to win games?
No, I'm glad you brought that up. We played 10 guys, and everybody knows. And our first unit with Bernard, Billy, and Truck Robinson, they could play with anyone in the league. And in the backcourt, Rory on the point, and then Ray Williams. But our second unit was the key, the major key, because you have to have that over the 82 games. And in a playoff time, they can't lose leads. They got to sustain the lead or build on the lead. And we had Darryl and Trent Tucker at the guard position. And then we had Louis Orr and Ernie Grunfeld at the forwards, and then the eraser, Marvin Webster, at the back. Now, that unit pressed and trapped, and they could press and trap and cause havoc almost against any team in the league. So we were 10 deep, and everyone knew what their jobs were, and then they were able to perform them under pressure. Now, I'm sorry that Truck Robinson isn't here, but Truck is having great difficulty health-wise right now, and he's not allowed to travel. So we know that Truck would have been here if he was healthy.
Definitely. What a great group of guys, as we've talked about them, especially Ray Williams and Truck. Now the Detroit series. Isaiah Thomas, did you feel that you had to match him, Bernard? I mean, was this a mano-a-mano situation?
I never viewed it in that manner. Obviously, Isaiah was a great basketball player, and we knew that he would garner most of our attention defensively. So we built a game plan around that. But certainly, he was a young player. We didn't expect him to dominate offensively in the way that he did. But, I think that we did a credible job in controlling him for the most part. That first game, we got off to a great start in terms of offensively. We were moving the ball around. I got hot early, was able to score 23 points consecutively in that first quarter. But throughout that game, it was ebb and flow back and forth. And really, what sealed that game victory for us, if not for Darryl Walker and those 3 steals that Darryl was able to get in that game, in that fourth quarter, coming down to the wire, we don't win that game. Mm-hmm. And Hubie, you got tossed out. I don't know if you remember that.
Earl Strom.
In the football stadium. I was in the upper tier watching the game.
Were you up there?
That's right.
Yeah, in the Silver Dome. And Rick Pitino had to take over, but we banded together. Billy, all of us, we were veteran players. We banded together, and we were able to pull it out coming down the stretch, guys.
Bill, we all think of the Pistons in 1988 and when they formed as the Bad Boys. Were they physical at that point? It looks like they were a real good offensive team, but maybe didn't have that necessarily the physicality that they showed in the later 80s.
Well, no, they were aggressive. It was the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So playoff basketball back then was a heck of a lot different than it is now. I mean, you could really put some wood on somebody. That's what I would tell you. So it was a really physical game. It was grinding. Guys played really hard. We were happy. Kelly Chpuka was guarding you.
Oh, yeah. I love to see Kelly.
But it was tough. It was tough basketball. We were just fortunate, as you said, we were able to play 10 guys and just wear them out.
Now, you like to talk about your numbers, so we're going to talk some numbers here. This is incredible. 42.6 points per game in that series on 60% shooting from the floor.
Hold. And he just told me in the waiting room he didn't get enough touches.
So what we're saying is he could have probably got more, right? Average 50?
He probably could have.
Yeah.
No, in that series, the Detroit elected to rotate guys out. Primarily, my primary defender was Kelly Chpuka. Then you had Kent Benson and Cliff Livingston.
Earl Cureton.
And Earl Cureton, right? Earl Cureton as well. But, we were a team collectively. Although I was scoring points, the bottom line, this is the playoffs, and this is the time you're supposed to deliver. This is when you earn your merit as a team and as a player in the playoffs. And so it was mandatory that we go out and win. But that first game laid the foundation for us. Without that first game, we don't win the series.
Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, let me just say something, okay? When you get to Game 5, people forget how hot it was in that building.
The Silverdome, right?
Yeah, right. Because what happened was we played them the first 2 games in the football Coliseum.
Right, the Silverdome.
So then what happened, they were having a tractor pull when the series was 2-2. So they have Game 5, and this is a championship. So we play in Joe Louis Arena, downtown, national television. It's 100 degrees outside, and inside it was worse. Because after 5 minutes, I had my jacket off, I had water in my shoes, I have a little short sleeve shirt on. Chuck Daly impeccably at the other end has a Brioni suit on that costs $5,000. He's not taking it off, okay? And it was this color. and he had on, a silk shirt, his diamonds on. He never took it off. And I always kid him about it. I said, "Did you ever wear that suit again?" He said, I soaked it right through the back that it looked like it was a navy blue suit. So he said they couldn't resurrect the suit. But the main thing there, this guy here could not practice because he was under the weather. And Mike, remember, Dr. Scott and Mike had to work on him, and everyone said that he would never get 40. Now, you have to remember he's playing with a splint on his right middle finger and a splint on his left. It was difficult for him on the fast breaks to make catches because of the pain when it would hit his hand. And all he did was score over 40 and an average over 40. But the biggest thing I'm glad you brought out, because at Tennessee, he averaged 26, 26, 26, and he shot over 60%. He came with us, and he did exactly the same thing in all the big games. The bigger the game, the bigger this guy played. And in that game, it didn't make a bit of difference that he was under the weather. You saw that two-handed dunk at the end. That was over 3 people. And we were all off on the floor on that one. Let me tell you, that's one of the greatest dunks that he had in his career.
Thank you, Hubie.
But no, he always rose to the occasion. But that building that day was so hot, no air conditioning, and you think about it, Game 5 of the major part of the series, and I was happy because our players rallied and did a great job, did a terrific job, and then Darryl made the key plays at the end. But naturally, we take him for granted because every time we needed a key basket, he had it.
Okay, now
Let's see, I have a question for Hubie, guys, right? Now, Hubie said I'm under the weather. We know that. I'm not feeling well. I'm playing with 2 dislocated fingers. Hubie calls the timeout, and he doesn't allow us to sit down. He's standing there in the huddle talking to us. I'm fatigued. I'm worn out already. Got my game face on. I sat on the floor.
a little more sympathetic now, I think. So you guys take care of business. You beat the Pistons to advance to the second round. Hubie, Bernard, the guys on the panel can jump in here, but what do you think of the Celtics team? They won 62 games, #1 seed in all of the NBA. You did play them very well, as you mentioned, 3-3 in the regular season series. But these were the juggernauts of the NBA, right?
Yeah, we actually thought that we could compete with them because in the regular season we had competed with them, but in the backcourt, we didn't fear. They didn't have they had Larry Bird and they had the big guys up front, and so in the backcourt we were going to put a lot of pressure on them, try to rush him up and down the floor, try to run him a little more, and then get our Billy involved to make sure that he's early in the game to neutralize Parrish, and then we really felt that Bernard had an advantage because when we ran power right or power left, whichever one we happened to get a rebound on that side, his ability to cover from half court to the top of the key and get the ball and score from that point, we felt that if we get that outlet, play good defense, get an outlet pass, push it up the floor, get Bernard on the wing, we had a very good chance. It was only the time that we felt that they would compete with us or we'd have a challenge when they slowed the ball down and moved it, and then we were able to take advantage of their size. And so for the most part, when we were at home, we were able to do exactly that. We were able to push the ball, get better shots, and move the forward. When we went to their place, they were able to slow the ball down and work it around and get it inside. And then, Bird would hit big shots when needed. So we thought we were going to be competitive, and it proved to be the case. They just happened to have just a little bit more juice and have that last home game that allowed them to win.
But truthfully, truthfully, talking to Quinn Buckner years later, they didn't want the matchup of seeing us.
Yeah.
They really didn't want to play us. They had to, so they feared us a lot.
Well,
I was very generous in Rory's comments about our team, Hubie. But see, he didn't have to guard Bird. I did.
But there's a reason for that.
One of the greatest compliments for this team was Larry Bird in his book that he wrote with Bob Ryan. And he devoted like 4 pages to that series. And he said in the book, we knew that whoever won that series was going to win the championship. And that's how Bird felt. And that's how everybody felt. But we remember, we go up there games 1 and 2, we lose by double figures. We come home, And instead of practicing, we had like a mild meeting, all right? A mild meeting for 2 hours with everything broken down. And then we put something in, and I'll never forget it. Ernie Grunfeld and Lewis come in with Marvin. They come in the game, and McHale goes to go for an uncontested layup, and we knew what the new rule was. So as McHale goes up, Ernie Grunfeld hit McHale into the stanchion and was right on top of him. And the old story, because Philadelphia and Boston always put you down, they never picked you up. And Ernie just was staring at him on the floor, but I'll be damned, he wasn't going to pick him up, okay? That sent the tone for the Garden, never mind the rest of us. And then we went on, and B had another great game. And just remember this, the famous statement that went nationwide. Bernard King will never get 40 on us.
We can't use the word that he actually said.
That's right. That's exactly right. Cornbread Maxwell and then ML Carr made that statement. So after he did it like 3 times, then he was sending a message along with the rest of his team. It was great. It was a wonderful series, well played, and they played great in Game 7.
I think one of the things it's funny that kids didn't see me play. They'll look on YouTube, and the 2 things are up there: is Isaiah scoring, and then the other one where I take Bird out of the air when he's flying, going to the basket. But they don't see the play prior to that when they ran me into the stanchion, and I got banged all up. Then the next time he comes down, I go to block his shot. Kinda, and swung, and he missed and hit him in the head, and I get thrown out the game. But my guys carried on and won. I think it just, the thing I think was underrated about what our team was is that we were a team. You don't see it today where 10 guys play, 10 guys contribute, 10 guys know their job, accept their role, and go do it. Bernard could score, and he gets a lot of the accolades for the scoring. But there were other guys on our team, that made sacrifices for us to win. And you don't see that in today's game. You don't see 10 players contributing, and that's when we played against Boston, they would have 6, 7 guys, but every time we brought 10, and that allowed us to come and win.
The Billy Cartwright. For all of you who are old enough, when Billy played for Red Holzman, he averaged over 20 points a game every year. When we came in with our offensive stuff and that, and then Bernard joining us in truck up front, our front line could really score. Billy averaged 17, 18 every and shot over 55%. So we had
8 rebounds.
That's right. Now our front line could not only score, but they could board and defend. And then when I would do clinics, doing defensive pressure and stuff like that for coaches, I always said the 3 greatest full court pressure on the ball players that I had ever seen. Mo Cheeks always gets credit for that. But Danny Ainge was every bit as good as Mo Cheeks. And this guy right here, the greatest trade we made during that time, one of the best, was when we picked up Rory in the middle of that February of '83, because then that solidified our guard pressure, because then when Darryl and when Darryl and Trent Tucker came in, then they just continued the pressure, and then they did more of a zone press rather than pressing and turning you.
Well, dovetailing on what Hubie was saying, in that Game 5, if you remember, the game was on the line. Isaiah had the ball. With about 20 seconds left in the game, score is tied. And with 5 seconds, Isaiah goes up to take a jump shot, and Darryl strips Isaiah Thomas of the ball, saving that game because Isaiah was hitting 3 points. He scored 16 points in, 90 seconds, guys, I think it was? Yeah, in 90 seconds. And so he was hot. And if not for that strip, he may take the shot and make it, and we'd lose that series.
Okay. I was saying thank God, because this guy in practice every day would strip me.
So somebody else was getting it this
somebody
time.
else.
Before we sign off here, let's just go down the line. Hubie, we'll have you start. What's your fondest memory of the 83-84 team?
Well, I think it was the camaraderie and how hard they played at both ends of the floor, because we were noted for that. And then also the fact It was a very unselfish team. We had key guys that could score, but there was never any bickering about shots, how many shots we were taking, because the people that were leading us in scoring were high percentage shooters. A lot of guys are doing that today, but they're volume shooters. They need a lot of shots to get 20 points a game. But we were fortunate at that time to have 3 guys shooting over 50% up front, which was major.
Bernard?
Well, my recollection would simply be is that, I was playing with a great group of guys. We were greatly coached by one of the best ever in Hugh B. Brown. And I was here at home, and that was a joy to be playing here in Madison Square Garden and playing at such a high level. And certainly something that I'll never forget that period. And I just want to mention to all of you folks that are here, October 17th, my book is debuting. My
Oh, a plug there.
memoir, okay? And so you have to check that out.
Bill?
What do you name it, Power Right?
No, actually, I'm not going to tell you that. You have to see the book. Darryl, I'll send you a copy, okay? By the way, my co-author is here, Jerome Priestler, who's written 9 New York Times #1 bestsellers.
Bill?
Well, for one thing, I want to make sure that everybody knows Mike Saunders is here. He's in the room. He was our trainer.
Absolutely. Mike Saunders. Big hand for Mike.
Kept it all rolling.
Mike was amazing. Mike and I were, Mike was great friends with everybody, but we've got some great stories, especially about your car. When I first saw Mike's car on the street, I said, look, Mike, we got abandoned cars right here on the street. So he was such a big part of us when we were here. And I do remember one of UB's pregame speeches. Do you remember this? Before the Pistons game, Game 5, UB, you said, I want everybody by the end of the game to have no games left in their uniform.
I remember that.
That was your pregame speech. Now that was a little pondering for us, I think. But I think we understood what you meant. And our team at that time, it was really it was a great team for its time because we were a defensive team. And it's interesting because right now UB knows think about this. There's 2 teams in our league right now holding the opponent under 100 points. But we can guard, and that was the big thing, is that we can guard, we can put pressure. UB and his staff gave us a scheme defensively and offensively, and we had very, very special people. So it was a special time to never be forgotten.
Rory?
Yeah, I think, the coaching staff was made up of, guys who are Hall of Famers. You got to think of it. We had players that were Hall of Famers, and for me, it was just an honor to be there every night to be able to compete, man. Every night to be able to go out there and know that your team is going to be good enough to win. And when I first came in the league, I was with the Nets and we didn't win, and I was then with Atlanta and we won a little bit, but not to the level that we were actually winning then. And every night it just was, for me, was just a great opportunity to get out there and to compete and to win. And one of the things that really helped me, and I don't know if we haven't talked about it, but Coach would always break it down to a smaller, just a goal. We got to win 3 out of 5, or 2 out of these 3 on the road. And so as a player, you wouldn't get caught up in what you were doing. In fact, when we were close to winning 50 games, we were at 48 or something. I didn't even know because I was just concentrating on the competition of winning 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5, as Coach had put it on the board.
Darryl?
Just our team chemistry, I thought, was unbelievable. Being the only rookie on the team, I caught it in a lot of ways, especially in training camp. Ernie Grunfeld making me bring donuts and coffee to him. Rooming with Marvin Webster. Who, I'm a very hyper guy, so going to bed at 9 o'clock was not even anything I was thinking about. And Marvin would make me turn the TV off and go to bed at 9 o'clock. But just our team chemistry, the guys that I've stayed in contact with. I call Truck Robinson now. He goes, "What's up, Rook?" I still not Darryl Walker, still Rook the Truck Robinson all these years later, and was fortunate enough to win a championship with Chicago Bulls. I always go back to playing here in the Garden. It was a special place, man. It's going to always be a special place in my heart.
I would just like to say, you're sitting out there, and if you weren't around at that time, well, what happened to that team? Well, over the summer, Bill Cartwright gets a hairline fracture in the foot, and that was one of 4. And so he was out for the next year. Marvin Webster, the backup, had a medical problem, and he had to retire that summer. And then Truck Robinson, our power forward, who averaged like 16 or 17 and 7 or 8 boards also, he had an injury over the summer that he never played again. He had to retire. So we lost 3 of our 4 physical people, 2 at the center position, and then Truck Robinson at the power forward. And that was the major problem, because back then, that was the first year of the cap, and you couldn't, all these rules that they have now, we wish they would have had those rules back then. But unfortunately,
Including the salaries.
That's right. And what happened is that we had to play guys from the minor league. We had to bring guys up.
Ken Bannister?
We brought up some guys. Let me tell you, we could write a book just about the guys that we were playing major minutes against. Philadelphia, Boston.
All right, well, we'll save that for another time. Maybe we'll bring those guys back in a Where Are They Now special. Real quickly, we're about to be complete here, but Daryl, why don't you start us off? Tell the fans what you're up to now. We'll kind of go down the line and catch everybody up with what you guys are doing now.
Well, I took a job. It'd be a year in April at Clark Atlanta University. Even when I was here with Mike Woodson as assistant coach, I was talking to him about I wanted to get to college and be a college coach. I didn't think I would have a chance to be a head coach again in the NBA, so I wanted to move on. I've been around good coaches, so I knew I would be a good coach if somebody gave me an opportunity. And Clark Atlanta gave me an opportunity. 2 years ago, they won 6 games. Last year, they won 9. We're 21-12. We went to the Division II NCAA tournament, lost in the first round. So I'm a happy man right now. So that's what I've been doing.
All right, Rory, what are you up to now?
I'm a vice president of player development over at the NBA. Been doing it for like 23 years now. After I finished playing basketball, I was going to games, encouraging players and being a mentor. And they told me that I could get paid for it. I said, oh, okay. I think I'll take that job. And I've been working on some of our major programs ever since, helping with the rookie transition program. And now we're really enthusiastic about what we're doing for our veteran players as well.
Bill?
Well, one thing, Bernard, if you come to Chicago, I do have a restaurant. It's called Froggy's. It's in Ubi. You're welcome. Everybody, all the guys, you're welcome. I know you're not coming, but you're welcome.
Free meal, we might.
Why would they name it Froggy's?
Froggy's.
Where is it, Bill?
Froggy's, okay. It's a French restaurant. French.
Okay.
So it's it's on me. It's on
Is
me.
it in the city?
No, it's not in the city. You have to drive up north. So I've owned that for about 10 years. And I am director of initiatives for the University of San Francisco. Just completed my first year. So what does that mean, Rory's going to ask? So that means that I do a little fundraising. I work with community outreach. We just had Condoleezza Rice on campus and Jesse Jackson. And I do some work with our alumni, getting them back to campus. So
Excellent.
it's good stuff.
Bernard, other than the book that we're
Well, I
all
was in
going
the
to read?
energy business for a number of years, 7 years, helping provide energy solutions for county facilities. Transition out of that into real estate. I've been engaged in that for many years. I wanted to acknowledge my wife of 20 years, and I'm going to embarrass her, my best friend, Shauna, who's here, right there seated. Hey, baby, love you. And have a daughter who's 18 and enrolled in school at Spelman in her freshman year. And you mentioned the book, and we're concluding with that right now.
Well, I'm still fooling them on television, so life is good. They just extended us for another 2 more years, so
Excellent.
It's been a very nice association with ESPN and ABC, so we're involved with that. But the clinics are gone. 40 years of doing clinics finally ended a few years back. It's very difficult to do 2 in 2 days now. You don't recover as quickly. But for all of you who are not around, when we made the trade for this guy, it was the piece that we needed in '83. And in '83, '84, and '85, I want you to know he was one of the most coachable superstars ever to play in this league. And more important, you heard him talk more today than he did in 3 years combined.
And on that note, we do have to conclude the Facebook Live. Maybe we'll bring him back and have some more chats about that. Before we sign off, we have a special announcement to our fans out there. The 1999 team is going to join me at the MSG Training Center for Facebook Live, and we are going to discuss all sorts of stories like we did here. So make sure to tune in April 3rd. Tune in to Facebook Live. We will be talking to Latrell Sprewell, Larry Johnson, Allen Houston, Herb Williams, Marcus Camby, and Kurt Thomas, the team that reached the NBA Finals. Guys, this was a blast. I thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to see you here back at the Garden. And remember, Darryl Walker, Rory Sparrow, Bill Cartwright, Bernard King, Hubie Brown, and I am Jonah Ballo for Knicks.com.